My name's David Ashton. I am Principal Consultant with Corporate Supremacy and have been a business advisor with Business Station since 2014. On the screen there, you'll see the range of services that I provide. One of those being setting up management systems and procedures, policies, procedures, work instructions for health, safety, environment, quality and information security management systems. And I'm also a qualified auditor of those systems as well. So I've helped numerous organisations develop various systems, but also get them certified as ISO International Standards Organisation compliant systems. Business Station take advantage of the services that they offer. You can get up to 24 hours of free or low cost advice, either through small group training sessions, so webinars, workshops, or one-to-one advisory sessions. We also manage incubators, so do take advantage of the services that we can offer. The ASBAS Digital Solutions Program is what funds Business Station, so you can get, as I said, you can get access to various services through the program. That's why it's sort of low cost or free. So do take advantage of the services and contact Business Station to see what they can do to assist you start up and manage and grow your business. So what we're going to be talking about today is looking at the whole issue of business management systems around information security, so protecting your corporate information. So regardless of how big your business is, it could just be you, or it could be you and a couple of other people, or it could be up to, well, however big you are, you're going to need some procedures around how to manage your information. And this is going to be particularly important if you're looking to tender for government work or even private industries. You may very well get questions in the tender document around your information management, your record keeping, document control, and the like. So that's what we're going to touch on today. So the first one we're going to look at is preventing fraud and corruption in your business. I mean, we often sort of associate corruption with government, but it can also sort of happen within your business, and the actions that you do, particularly in dealing with government, may be seen as corrupt. So so what is fraud and corruption? The intentional act involving the use of deception to obtain an unjust or illegal advantage. So examples of fraud, for example, misappropriation of assets, miscellaneous manipulation of financial reporting. So this is where you perhaps have to provide financial reports to external parties, or internally, if you're producing them for a board or something. So causing loss or liability through deception. False invoicing for goods and services, so that could be where people are, submitting invoices that have the incorrect amount and using money for their own purposes. Backdating agreements, exaggerated or fictitious accident, harassment or injury claims. So sort of in the workplace, if your employees are lodging false claims of things that may have happened, and misuse of leave entitlements. There are some examples of fraud within the workplace. Corruption, on the other hand, is dishonest behaviour by those in positions of power, acting contrary to the interests of the business, abuse of trust in order to achieve personal gain for themselves or someone else. So it's basically about using the resources of the business to further their own interests rather than the interests of the business and shareholders. So examples of corruption, payment of secret commissions, receipt of bribes or gratuities, release of confidential information for an improper purpose, or manipulating a tender process. Now, before I go on, we've just had some more people join us, so welcome aboard. I'm David Ashton. If you do have any questions, just drop them in the chat box and I will get to them. We've just started, so you will receive a copy of the recording or access to the recording of this presentation, and I'll also be sending you a copy of the presentation as well. So, but if you've got any questions, just drop them in the chat box and I'll go through them later on. There will be an opportunity at the end to ask the questions. So there's some examples of corruption there, some further examples: dishonesty or dishonestly using your influence to achieve a personal objective as opposed to a business objective; blackmail, failure to disclose gifts or hospitality; misuse of internet or email; unauthorised release of confidential private information or intellectual property. So a lot of these things are going to be, what's considered corruption or fraud is going to be determined by the policies and procedures that you have in place. So for example, if you've got a internet or email usage policy and people operate outside of that, then there's an example possibly of corruption. Likewise with gifts or hospitality. So you need to, the way to protect yourself here is through the development of policies and procedures. So in terms of, protecting yourself from fraud and corruption, so develop and implement policies and procedures proportionate to the business. So, I'm not talking about voluminous documents. I'm talking about, it could just be a simple one-page statement of intent about what you expect of any employees that you bring on or any contractors. So it becomes more important when you start working with third parties, and also the expectations of your suppliers and your clients, and likewise their expectation of you. Because one of the things that I focus on with the webinars that I do is that a lot of these, whilst they're a business protection mechanism and risk management mechanism for you as the business owner, they're also a business development strategy as well, because your prospective clients, whether they be government through a tender or anyone, is wanting to be satisfied that you have the right systems and procedures in place to protect, in relation to this issue, protect their corporate information as well. So it's actually helping you grow your business by having good systems and procedures in place. But again, they've got to be to the scale suitable for your business. So you need to develop the policies and procedures. You need to commit to them at all levels of the organisation. Go through that risk management exercise. Look at the security risks to your information and develop some risk treatment strategies around that. Due diligence on prospective employees, contractors and suppliers. So if you're bringing on an employee or a contractor, referee checks, CVs, the usual sort of things that you should undertake before you engage someone to make sure that they are going to be honest enough to protect your business. Communication to and training for employees and contractors. So this is looking at induction processes, clearly outlining expectations in regard to information management and the use of company resources and overall behaviour in dealing with third parties. So you need to monitor and review. So looking at internal audits, put in place some mechanisms around enforcement and sanctions. And there's a good Australian standard 8000 good governance principles provides a framework around codes of conduct and the like that you could adopt as well. So the types of policies and procedures that you could put in place to mitigate fraud, the opportunity for fraud and corruption. So a code of conduct for employees and contractors, conflicts of interest, whistleblower around reporting and corruption, procedures or policies around receipt of hospitality and gifts, personal files, access. So who should have access to files of your record keeping. Not everyone should have access to everything that you do in business. So procedures around that, your recruitment, selection, induction. So, looking at your due diligence around engaging employees and contractors, leave, flexible work arrangements. That's becoming increasingly important over the last 12 months and will continue around, working from home and the like. How do you protect your business information and assets when people are working from home and not necessarily in your office where you can keep an eye on them? Risk management, travel, use of corporate credit card, procedures around procurement of goods and services and making sure that proper processes are in place, particularly around conflicts of interest and preventing opportunities for people to misuse that process to further their interests. I mean, I've been worked in organisations where people have been dismissed and charged for misappropriation of procurement, hiving off 10% of invoices to their own bank account, that type of thing. Discipline and acceptable use of your information and communication systems. So there's just some, and as I said, these don't need to be voluminous documents, but they could just be simple one-page statements of intent or expectations from employees and contractors. And as I said earlier about business development, you might get some questions in tenders or grant applications or quotes, or even from your existing or prospective clients about how you manage certain things in your business. And if you've got some policies and procedures, then that's going to help you meet their expectations as well and help you grow your business. So the next thing we're going to talk about is privacy. So there is legislation called the Privacy Act. It's a federal legislation and it's about protecting personal information. So that's personal information of your customers. There's a definition there as outlined in the Privacy Act. Information or an opinion about an identified individual, whether the information or opinion is true or not, and whether the information or opinion is recorded in a material form or not. So it's basically any records that you have of your customers, your employees, your contractors, whoever, and you need to manage them in a certain way to protect that information from being released to people that shouldn't have access to it. That's essentially what this is about. So looking at how you collect information, how you store it, dispose of it, how you and the circumstances in which you would provide access to it, how you use it, and what you use it for, and how you disclose personal information. So you can see there from at all stages of the process. So the basis upon which you collect information to the basis upon which you eventually dispose of that information and how you dispose of it. So you need to have a privacy policy. If you're over a certain dollar limit there, you must have it. And you can get these things from the internet. I mean, most businesses these days have a privacy policy of some sort. They may put them on their internet or allow you to have access. If you're under 3 million in turnover, you're encouraged to opt in if you deal with personal information. And so again, it's a combination of protecting your business, but also giving customers, current and prospective or future customers, that no matter what the circumstances, their personal information is in a safe pair of hands with yourself and your business. So maintain strong security posture in terms of your access to your computer system. If you've still got some paper records in filing cabinets or whatever, who has access to those? You develop a security plan. Identify the types of information collected. Identify any applicable laws and regulations that pertain to it, and then just document that in a form that will allow you to identify, look at it in the context why do you collect that information? How do you collect it? What are you going to use it for? How are you going to store it in a secure manner? Who has access to it, and why should they have access to it? Opportunities for your customers or employees to have access to that information to ensure that it's correct, and what is the process that you're going to put in place to eventually dispose of it in a manner that doesn't release that information to the public or to people who don't need access to it. So document all that in a risk register, and ensure that compliance with your various obligations there, no mishandling of personal data, and around data breaches as well. So we're just up to talking about privacy issues at the moment. You will have access to the recording of this in the next few days, and later on today I'll send you a copy of the presentation as well. So in terms of protecting personal information, we've just talked about risk. So protecting personal information is about storage, collection, use, storage, disposal of personal information, your customer information. So legal compliance. So you need to develop some, after you've done your risk management, you've identified those, you need to put in place risk mitigation strategies around privacy, compliance, protecting data throughout the data lifecycle, and early detection of any breaches, and the ability to identify who has breached your systems. You also need to put in place some strategies around reporting misuse or breaches of policies and procedures in your organisation, and looking at your employee commencement, so your induction processes and your exit procedures when they leave, putting in place mechanisms to ensure that there's no misappropriation of information at termination of employee. The last thing you need is a disgruntled employee using or releasing information to those that shouldn't. You don't want someone that's going to work with a competitor to take sensitive information. And so it's all about putting in place a framework to protect your business information and that of your customers. The Office of Australian Information Commissioner, there's a website there. They've got a lot of good information to help you set up your policies and procedures, and a whole lot of information around what privacy is and how you can improve the management of personal information in your business. There's some standards that you can purchase that provide guidance around policies and procedures, so good governance principles, information security management system, which I'll touch on, and then you can just go to just do a search on Privacy Act 1988 in Google, and it'll bring up the legislation that you can access and go through that. You don't need to be an expert, but you need to have a basic understanding of what these all mean to put in place procedures to protect customer and personal information. If you're dealing with European businesses based in Europe, or if you do work in Europe, you need to comply with that data protection regulation, which is similar to the Privacy Act anyway. So basically saying you've got privacy policies around personal data. Each state and federal government have State Records Act. So if you're putting in tenders for state contracts, you may get some questions around your record keeping to ensure that you comply with that act. Likewise, freedom of information. So your business information, if you've got a contract with the government, may be released to the public through an FOI application. So just be mindful of that as well. So one thing that the government has put in place is what's called the Essential 8, and it's sort of, this is the only sort of software stuff that I deal with, but these are strategies to protect your computer systems against cyber security threats, and they're designed for small business around the protection of basically protecting you from cyber security threats. And there's a website there that you can access that'll go into this in more detail. I'll just sort of touch on it here, but there's some simple things that you can do immediately, low cost or no cost, to protect your computer system. So, it covers the cyber intrusions, ransomware, those accessing your system externally for malicious purposes, even protecting you from inside activity from perhaps disgruntled employees or whatever. So it looks at application whitelisting, so determining what and who should have access to your systems and the basis upon which they have access. Patch applications, so looking at changes to your systems that you might install, making sure that you use the latest version of particular software and various applications. If you're using Microsoft, make sure that you configure all their macros correctly. You're using the latest versions, and that you block macros from the internet and other sources that aren't required in your business. So looking at user application hardening, so that's basically making it more difficult to reverse engineer and tamper with finished applications. So making sure that the applications that you've installed in your computer system are correct, they're operating the way they should, and that there's no opportunity to reverse engineer or tamper with the operation of that application. Administrative privileges, so I said earlier, not everyone needs to have access to your system, so make sure that if you've got a couple of employees, make sure that it's very clear who in your business should have access to what, and make sure that you put blockages on the computers to in terms of accessing certain websites, accessing certain files and the like, and even if you still have paper files in a filing cabinet, I mean, not everyone needs to have access to that filing cabinet. So that's what you need to do there. Operating systems, so when you change any aspect of your computer, make sure that you're using the latest operating systems and don't use any unsupported versions. So buy operating systems from reputable sources and the like. So that's what you need to do in that situation. Multi-factor authorizations, authentication. So that's sort of the double password type thing. So where you got passwords with 6 or more characters, there could be use of security keys or tokens, smart cards, that type of thing. So that's an important way to secure access to your system. So I mean, for banks, for example, if you're using, say, Combiz, they give you a token that you've got to use. So someone's got to input the data, and you can't pay the money out until someone uses the token security key. So that type of thing is an important factor in protecting information, and also protecting yourself from fraud as well, which we talked about earlier. And the final thing is daily backups of your system as well, whether they're stored on offline, in a hard drive or something like that. So it really depends on the extent of your system. Some may have it up in the cloud, Others may, if you're a small enough business, you might just use a portable hard drive or something like that and store it in a filing cabinet. So make sure that you back up your systems regularly. So now we're just going to touch on business continuity, because again, this is important in terms of ensuring the continuity of your service delivery or product delivery to your customers. And it's a question that gets asked a lot in tenders. How are you going to ensure the continuity of business and protect, ensure that you can deliver, what the buyer wants when they want it, and no matter what the circumstances, you can continue to do that. So business continuity is an important element of that. It's a management process that identifies threats to an organisation, the impacts to business operations. So when you look at your business, what are the things that are likely to impact your ability to deliver your products and services to your market? So it provides a framework for building organisational resilience and diminish and avoid disruption. So that's really what you've got to do. Identify, look at what you do, identify the matters that are likely to possibly impact your ability to do those things, and then from a risk management point of view, look at what strategies you're going to put in place to make sure that that doesn't happen. So I mean, if the internet went down now, for me, well, I wouldn't be able to deal with, continue with this webinar. So what strategies do I have in place? Well, I'm just using the Wi-Fi in my office. It might be that I quickly transfer to my mobile phone hotspot to continue. That would be a backup procedure that I would put in place to continue business operations. So yeah, it's all about minimising risk and vulnerability to disruption and the timely resumption of operations. There is a template that you can use to help you with that, and I've given you the website there to go and do that, to have a look at that. So you can see there the planning process, understand the risks, develop the continuity strategy, put in place the plans to mitigate those risks, implement it, test it, and continually review and maintain it. And likewise with all these policies and procedures that I talk about, they're all the complexity of those is determined by the size of your business. I mean, if you're only one or two people, then a business continuity plan might be just a one-pager of simple things that you might do. But it's all about giving comfort to your suppliers and to your customers that no matter what the circumstances, that you're still going to be able to continue working and continuing to deliver their product. Or from the case of supplier, pay their bills. So that's really what it's about. So the business continuity plan itself, as I said, it should outline the risks that the organisation faces, and then identify those risks, prioritise them, and then put in place processes to mitigate those risks from actually impacting your business. Conditions for activating the plans, emergency procedures, fallback procedures when things happen. So, as I said, you might move from Wi-Fi or Ethernet cabling to your mobile phone hotspot if the internet goes down. There's an example there. Looking at resumption, maintenance of the plan. You need to make your employees and contractors aware of the plan and educate them. So, your corporate inductions for your new staff and outlining roles and responsibilities as to who's going to do what. So it could be you just doing everything, but you need to be able to outline who's going to have responsibility. And again, I mentioned earlier, you will likely get questions in your tender responses around business continuity, because it is, organisations, clients want that satisfaction that you can deliver their work or product on time. So it is an important element if you can demonstrate that you do have these procedures in place. So in terms of information security management, this is an international standard that you can develop some policies and procedures around protecting your business information, whether it be in electronic form, paper form, or whatever. So it's about information security risk management. It applies a risk management approach. So it's the same thing: identify what business information you have, identify the form in which it's kept, going back to privacy, how you collect it, how you store it, how you use it, who has access to it, and then develop some procedures around protecting the information. So the purpose of this standard is to examine security risks, develop policies and procedures, and adopt an overriding management process to ensure controls continue to meet the security needs. So, and again, it's giving comfort to your stakeholders, your suppliers, customers, even your insurance agency, because, for example, in the state government tender here in WA, there may be a requirement that you have cybersecurity liability insurance. So it is a requirement to win a government tender. So if you can demonstrate some good information security management processes in your organisation, one, it may assist you in keeping your insurance premiums lower, but it'll also satisfy that compliance requirement in a government tender and help you possibly win that tender. So again, I can't stress the importance of having policies and procedures in place from a business development point of view. So this next slide has the structure of the standard. So you can purchase these documents for $100 odd or so, probably a bit more than that now. The first three parts are really just the introductory statements, but it's the remainder, 4 to 10, is the actual requirements. So these are the things that you must do and you must put in place to meet the requirements of the standard. So you look at your organisational context. So the organisational context is the internal and external issues that affect your business. So external environment, so the market, your location, compliance requirements, contractual requirements, who your suppliers and clients are. That's the external environment. Internal environment is looking at your business culture, your size of the business, number of employees, that type of thing. Depending on the size of the business, the complexity of developing policies and procedures will be determined by the context of the organisation in which it operates. So, top management, so that could be you as the business owner. You need to show leadership in this. You must plan actions to ensure that the system can achieve its objectives, and you must put in place the resources required to support the information security management system. So that could be people, procedures, financial support, software, hardware, that type of thing. So you have to develop and implement the procedures, so policies and procedures. You've got to evaluate the performance of the system at regular intervals, so monitor, measurement, analyse, so making sure that it is actually meeting your needs and protecting your corporate information. And where you find non-conformity, so non-conformity is basically something that's gone wrong, you need to investigate it, determine what happened, and put in place measures to correct it, and then make sure it doesn't happen again, and then over time improve performance so that those sort of errors aren't happening on a regular basis. You must have a policy, one-page statement of intent that outlines, the framework for setting objectives and also satisfying the applicable requirements, which I'll talk about later, and is committed to continuous improvement. You must document that, communicate it, and make it available. So, a lot of businesses put their policies on the website, or you go into some of the bigger companies in their front foyer, they might have various policies up on their wall, and make it available to new employees or contractors when they start work with you. So you have to set objectives as well. So this is objectives around, maintaining your information, making sure that there's no data breaches and the like. You need to, they need to be measurable. You need to review them, monitor them, and update them regularly. Develop the procedures. So it's all about risk management. So as we talked about, identify what the risks are and then put in place the procedures to mitigate those risks. And there's certain documentation that you're going to need. And this system is a certified management system, similar to things like ISO 9001, quality management, environment, safety. These can be certified as international standards, and there's processes that you've got to go through, and you can get a third-party endorsement and the like. And again, it all depends on the context of your organisation. But if you're big enough that you want to go down that path, these are the documentation you're going to need. I mean, it's rare in a tender that you're going to get a question that, or a compliance requirement that says that you must have a certified management system. But if you can demonstrate that you have a system that's consistent with the standard, then that's going to, give you a higher point score than someone that doesn't. So it's all about meeting the requirements of that tender from a business development point of view. But again, also meeting the requirements of your clients and customers, existing and prospective. So these are the documentation that you need to demonstrate that you have. And again, could be just be a one-page statement, a one-page procedure. It could be a flow chart type thing. So it doesn't need, they don't need to be voluminous documents. So, and once you've identified the information security risks, then develop risk treatment plans, put in place various internal controls, and importantly, in the design, development, implementation, ongoing monitoring and review, correction, you need to retain documented information, because an auditor, and even in tenders and that, you may be required to provide evidence. You're going to have to provide evidence that you have the policies and procedures in place, but you're also going to have to provide evidence that you've actually implemented them, or you've made changes to the system or whatever. So it is important to maintain good record keeping around all these things. So one of the things that you're required is the statement of applicability, and these are the reference control objectives and control measures. So this basically is a guide for you to develop all the internal controls in place to better protect your corporate information, use it as a starting point. But again, it's that risk management. So you've gone through and identify all the risks to information security, and then you put in place the internal controls for that. And the controls are based on these things. So security policies, organisation of information security, HR security, asset management, control, cryptography, physical environmental operations, communication, system acquisition, supplier relationships, security incident, business continuity, which we talked about, and meeting all your compliance obligations. So the reference controls, so information security policy, so management direction for information security. So that's a high level policy statement of intent about what you're going to do and what you're going to achieve and how you're going to do it. Organisation of information security, so that's the management framework around developing the policies and procedures that you need. So it also applies to mobile devices and teleworking security, and I guess now remote and home working from home security. So things like mobile devices, say laptops, for example, a security measure could be, if you're taking your laptop on a flight with you for business, that you keep it with you as onboard luggage rather than send it through the baggage handlers. Likewise, don't go leaving your laptop on the front seat of your car, put it in your boot if you're driving, that type of thing. Human resource security, so again, your induction processes, what sort of security do you put in place to protect your employee, or to ensure that employees only have access to information that they need to have access to. Asset management, so look at who's going to be responsible for asset, look at the classification of it, and who's going to have access to it and use of that, and who's going to protect it in the manner in which it's protected. Access control, so who has access to your system and your records and information. So again, not everyone in your business should have access to everything. Cryptography, so the processes that you put in place around confidentiality, authenticity, and the like. Physical environmental security, so if you've got an office environment, who has access to that, who has access to your equipment, who has access to your filing cabinets. If you work in a type of office, things like security cards, swipe cards, and the like. Operational security, so that's all around the actual systems, the technology that you have in place. So the essential 8 that I talked about earlier would assist in developing some internal controls around operational security. Communication, so network and information transfer, particularly between third parties, what sort of procedures you're going to put in place there. Acquisition, development, maintenance, so your procurement processes around system acquisition, testing of information and systems. And then your supplier relationships, so putting in place clauses within your terms and conditions around information security and the like, so that they're not misusing your corporate information for improper purposes. Incident management, so what happens if something does actually occur? How are you going to rectify that? How are you going to manage it? There might be a case in which it has to be reported. Procedures around that. Business continuity, which we talked about earlier, again, important to have a business continuity plan. And then looking at your compliance obligations, so whether they be legal, legislation, or any contractual requirements you have with suppliers and clients or customers. Looking at taking those contracts and making sure that you're meeting the requirements from an information security point of view, and reviewing those to make sure that they're constantly relevant to the business at any given point in time. So to help you with all this, the government has set up, this is a federal government I'm talking about, some support services and information to help you develop some policies and procedures and understand the whole gamut of cybersecurity, information security management. So the Australian Cyber Security Centre. That's their website there. It's quite useful in having a whole range of support services and people that you can contact to discuss this with further. Likewise, they've set up AusCyber to help progress this amongst, and this is designed primarily for small and medium businesses. So again, that's their website, so have a look at what they can do to help you. And that's pretty much it with my presentation. As I said, I will make this available. I'll hang on the line for a bit if you've got any questions, but you know, from my point of view, a successfully implemented information security management system will have commitment from the owners and managers of the business, commitment from everyone that works in the business. It will be adequately communicated, and consultation in the development. There'll be effective policies, procedures, work instructions in place to effectively secure information. You'll allocate sufficient resources to it. It'll be integrated into other business processes, so that's important as well, that it isn't a standalone system, but it's not this thing out here that you have to comply with. It is actually the way that you do business, and there's an expectation on the part of your employees that they will manage your business information in an appropriate manner with having due regard to security and protection from fraud, corruption and other misuse. You as a business owner or manager will monitor and review the performance and measure the performance of your system to ensure they're meeting your needs as a business, and you will document everything to do with it to, again, provide evidence of implementation and protection. So I believe it'll lead to, by setting up these systems and procedures, it'll, you know, secure business information. I think it'll reduce information security costs, you know, particularly things like, you know, liability insurance, if you can demonstrate some procedures around that. Able to respond to evolving security threats. I mean, there's a lot of that happening lately. It comes and goes, but when it does happen, you don't want it to happen to you. Obviously, the confidentiality of corporate information, so that's your corporate information as a business owner, but also your customers. So it gives them confidence, particularly, you know, if you're dealing with sensitive personal information. You do have an obligation to protect that from third-party access. Increase resilience, fulfillment of compliance obligations. I think it'll give you business integrity when dealing with your customers. You know, they see you as a responsible business owner that does have good systems and procedures in place. And as I've talked about, I think it will assist in business growth, that it will look good when you're tendering for government contracts, if you can demonstrate good systems and procedures, because they talk in there about organisational capacity, and one of the things that they ask questions about are your policies and procedures around various aspects of business management. And one of those things that they often ask about is business continuity. So it will give your customers and your future customers or prospective customers confidence that you can manage corporate information securely. So that's it for today. Thanks for participating. That's my details. I'm based in Perth. I provide a range of advisory services under the Business Station banner. Run workshops, webinars. I can meet with people on a one-to-one basis, either in person or online, to advise on any business related matter within my specialisation. So have a look at that website at the bottom. That'll tell you what I can help you with under the Business Station banner. And if you've got any, you want to have a follow-up advisory session to talk about specific needs to your business, happy to do that. Otherwise, thank you for your participation. And if you have any questions, I'll open the mic.
Yeah, hi there. My name is Chris with a K.
Yeah, hi Chris, how you going?
Thank you. Thank you very much for that presentation. It's quite thorough.
Yes, it is. I do a rather thorough presentation. It's not the most exciting subject. It can be a bit dry,
Yeah.
but I will send you a copy of this. And the slides are quite detailed, and I deliberately do that. So yeah, you can keep it as a bit of a handbook for future reference. There might be some things that you need to do now. There might be things that are more relevant in the future as you grow your business. So at least you've got a good resource, I hope, that you can tap into.
Yeah. A quick question to clarify. There's an ISO on information system security.
Yeah, that's the 27,001.
27,001.
Yeah.
And do you have any idea how much a certification would cost under that?
Sorry, how much?
A certification would cost for an SME.
Look, depending on the size of your business, I mean, the ISO certifications I've done for businesses generally within the, to get the, anywhere between 10 and 20,000 to get a third-party certification.
Okay, and if it was a small business, then they could say, we don't have the cash for that, but we do have systems in place that roughly follow those that ISO, and a third party might be able to say, yes, we've had a look at it and it's pretty close, but we haven't made them actually get the certification.
Yeah, exactly. You can take it up to a certain point because there's a number of stages that you've got to go through. The first stage is document review, and then the next stage is a first stage certification audit, and then they come back with a review. As part of that stage audit, they'll come back with the advice as to how close you are in terms of the document development and its consistency with the standard. And they might, and then they'll ask you to make any changes, and then they'll come and get back again for a second stage audit, which will be your certification audit.
Okay.
So what I sort of advise clients, and what I've done with clients, because I'm a qualified auditor of these systems, but I also help businesses develop the policies and procedures. So I tend to, the way I work is that I'll come in and develop your policies and procedures for you and get you to the point where you have a system that is compliant with the standard, but you don't have to, and then it's up to you if you want to go down the path of certification. But at the very least, you will have a system that's consistent with the standard. Then I would say spend 12 months implementing it and obviously saving up your money, and then go down that path.
Okay, look, yes, I understand that.
Yeah, and it all depends on the size of your business. If you're half a dozen employees, then that will obviously be cheaper than if you're 100 employees.
Yeah, for sure.
And the more that you have evidence of implementation, and actually, because they're going to want to see the actual documentation, policies and procedures, but they're going to want to see, to get your certification, they're going to want to see evidence of implementation in that.
Yeah, that makes sense. Yeah, thank you. You've answered my question. That's good.
Yeah. So, and companies that do that, I mean, SAI Global, I'm actually, and well, just a disclosure of interest, I'm a SAI Global consultant. So through that, I can get my clients discounted rates on access to the standards and certification and that type of thing. But there are other organisations like SGS and the like that do that. So.
Okay, good. Thank you.
So that's where we're at. But okay, well, thanks for coming along. You will have access to the recording for the bit that you missed later on next week. And I'll send out this presentation to you later on today.
Thanks a lot.
Okay, thanks for that.